Alright everyone, how's it going? Hope you're doing good. So we're back here again with another Twitch stream recap drawing from my 9 series of cult horror icons. This time we're doing Pinhead from Hellraiser. So here's the last, number 9 of the little series that I did. Originally, I was actually planning to do one of the monsters' forms from The Thing. But when I looked at the other ones, they were all kind of like a similar shape. They're all kind of like humanoid people kind of thing. And because The Thing, it kind of changes throughout the movie, so it didn't really feel right. So yeah, obviously Pinhead is a cult icon, and Hellraiser is super popular, had a million sequels. Everyone loves it apparently. So, bit of a no-brainer. Cool guy, cool costume, very iconic. So yeah, started off same way I normally do. Bit of a sketch underneath that I sort of worked out the kind of pose that I kind of wanted to work with. I didn't really have much of a plan with how they'd all look when they sit together. It was probably a bit of a downfall for me, but turned out alright. But it's something to learn from the next time I do like a little series of 9 in a grid like that. But this was the pose I wanted to be looking this way, holding up the cube, which is obviously an important part of the Hellraiser kind of mythos of the world. The lament configuration, what it's called. I didn't really want to do a specific kind of likeness copy from a photo or anything like that. It's a bit easier when you've got stuff like Mike Myers, Jason. You don't have to worry too much about really specific details, but with Pinhead, I kind of wanted to be in the vibe of the main actor, Doug Bradley. So I sort of referenced a little bit, but not really too much. This is kind of interesting too. You could see that I went back after I started doing the pencils and just wanted to work out the anatomy to make sure I had it right. I felt like the sketch was a bit too loose, and I kind of left a little bit there to sort of be worked out with the pencil stage. You can see I'm cutting back and forth just to make sure that the pose is right. You know, his arm doesn't look weird or awkward, like it's not in a real kind of place. You know, the angle is kind of cool. I ended up putting the arm on another layer just so I could really make sure the costume and how it all fits together and the key points from it are all in the right place and it makes sense, all that kind of stuff. It's a good thing to do, good little trick. Do some things on different layers. You can do that in traditional media as well. Just draw in a different bit of paper on your lightbox or tracing paper. But if you want to make sure that something that's partially obscured by something else and you're really making sure it's in the right place, doing the right thing, then do the other stuff that sits in front on a different layer. You know, different figures, arms, legs, you know, whatever you want to do. So now I'm getting into the pencil stage quite a bit. Still really just kind of get those features and things right. I was looking at images of Doug Bradley, the original Pinhead from the Hellraiser film, but I didn't want to copy too much, so really just looking at key points of his face and stuff like that, and kind of the vibe of the character. Alright, so let's talk some trivia, because you can't hear me talking about drawing crap all day. So, Hellraiser, made in 1987, written and directed by Clive Barker. What's interesting is this not only is his first feature-length film, because he'd only done short films before that, but he adapted his own novella that's called The Hellbound Heart. Super famous dude. You know, he went on to make Candyman, Nightbreed. There was a whole bunch of other Hellraiser movies as well. He worked on a video game called Jericho, like a horror game. So yeah, done heaps of stuff. But this is his first feature-length film, and the budget was $1 million, and it made $20 million. So if that's a kind of a litmus test or a benchmark for if this guy's any good, I'd say making $20 million is a pretty good indication that he knows what he's doing. You know, like, he admitted that he didn't really know much about the process of filmmaking or hardware or even like difference between camera lenses and stuff, but he said that the cast and crew was super helpful, and they kind of were like, yeah, that's cool, you know, if you want to do this, you should do this. And he sort of deferred to those people that knew what they were doing to get the best result, which is always the best way to go. Someone knows more than you, you listen to them straight up. So much of the effects throughout the film was done by Clive Barker himself, along with this friend of his that he just refers to as a Greek guy, over a weekend. And they got extremely drunk, and he was not sure how well it was going to go. But obviously, the movie did alright, so he must have done something good. The whole intro scene of the film, which is pretty amazing, not even for the time. Like, you look at it now, it's pretty crazy, because it's all practical effects of the Frank sort of being reconstituted, was created by like filming sort of sculptures and stuff like that made with wax, melting them, and then playing the footage in reverse. They pumped blood up through the floor and then sort of like reverse that as well to have it all coming together. It's pretty interesting. It's a really cool watch, that full intro scene. The movie was shot in England, and it was meant to be set there, but then when the studio was sort of coming in, doing their thing, they're sticking their finger in everything, they said, it's probably going to do better if we set it in America and get rid of a lot of the English references. So what they did is they did exactly that. They got rid of all the sort of mentions of English people and places and stuff, and then they went back and redubbed a whole bunch of the actors' lines with American actors with American accents. Not everyone, but yeah, pretty crazy. It does seem a little bit off when you watch it now, but back then I don't know if people really gave a shit or really noticed it too much. So Doug Bradley originally didn't really want to go for the role of Pinhead and didn't really want to take it because he was concerned with all the makeup and stuff that people wouldn't recognize him, which means it'd be harder for him to get work because they wouldn't be, that's you for the thing, whatever. But ended up doing it. He's been in a bunch of sequels. The makeup that they put on him for all the pins and all that kind of crap, it took about 6 hours to apply, and he got so good at it and knew exactly what to do and all the process and steps that in some of the other films where it had similar characters and cenobites, he ended up being an assistant and like helping them set up all the makeup and put it on to people because he was just so familiar with it. He modeled his depiction of Pinhead on Christopher Lee's version of Dracula, a sort of more sort of just really creepy and imposing kind of figure, whereas the studio really wanted to have him a bit more like Freddy Krueger, or so a bit more personality or over the top, cracking jokes and stuff. But Clive Barker was super against it and just fought it all the whole time. And so that's pretty cool to have a sort of a more esteemed, reserved kind of villain as opposed to crazy one jumping around doing crazy stuff. Pinhead is not the actual name of the character, which is pretty interesting because that's how he's referred to across everything. Originally, he didn't really have much of a name. I don't think anyone referred to him by name in the movie, and in the script he was just mentioned as a priest or the priest. So that's how Clive Barker kind of refers to him. He originally was kind of a bit annoyed because Pinhead sounds dumb, it sounds like an insult. But because if you don't have a character being referred to specifically by their name, people are just going to make up a nickname. It's just what happens. It's the same thing with the other cenobites. There's like the Chatterbox, Butterball. He was just fat. You know what I mean? So in other forms, other like different media, like comic books and stuff like that, other characters refer to Pinhead as the priest or priest. But generally in pop culture, he's just known as Pinhead. And what's also kind of funny is that you can see I'm cracking on with the drawing, but I get pretty close to the end. I think I've masked him out doing the background now. I want to have the cube or the lament configuration, as it's called, as a sort of not glowing, because it doesn't actually glow the whole thing. The opening does, but just have a bit more of it's a focal point. I spent a bit more time on the pattern and stuff than some of the other images in the 9 series. Doing some sort of lightning kind of vibes, coming out of the box to give it that kind of intense feel. The box itself I kind of use as the focal point for the orange glows. You can see it's hitting the side of his face, that sort of palm side of his hand where he's holding the box, and then just like the front of his chest. But you'll also see in a minute that I'm like, yeah, cool, I'm done. Oh wait, no, I'm not. I got to do the pins. So obviously you got to do pins in Pinhead's head because he's Pinhead. So it's kind of good that I left it to the last minute though, because I was able to sort of get everything else done and kind of make sure everything's the way it is, and then just do the pins last. It can get really difficult sometimes getting bogged down in those details and trying to make something work when really you should be thinking about the bigger picture, and then details you can always add later. You can even add them on another layer, you know what I mean? So, you know, I drew them all in, made the grid, sort of based the perspective roughly on how his head is sort of turned and function like that. Having the grid placed on the head like that as the character looks makes it super easy to know where the pins are coming out. And yeah, they're just going through, just fixing up some little details and stuff. Just to, I got rid of some of the outlines as well, just to help give it a bit more of a sort of a feel that wasn't as flat. So here you go. Here's the final image. You can tell as well, I used the orange on his costume for little bits of skin to come over. Because I sort of use the orange a little bit different in each one. Sometimes that's lighting, sometimes it's a key element. Freddy Krueger, I did his stripes on his sweater, for instance. So that's kind of cool, just to think about different ways to use color and not necessarily in a purely representational kind of way. So that's it for the 9 series of horror icons. I've got another series coming up, and I'm going to do the same thing. Show you guys the drawing, show my process, talk a little bit about what it is I'm drawing. And yeah, so hopefully see you guys soon. Thanks for watching. Take it easy. Peace.